We are supported by the whole of the universe, by all the stars, all the planets, the light that comes from the sun, the air that we breathe, the waters, all the wonderful trees, plants that give us oxygen. Can you hear me all right?
Absolutely.
Oh, good. The world is full of wonders. Each moment is a wonder. Each moment is a mystery. The universe is a question. What is it?
Why is it?
Why is it? Thank you. Why is it? That's a very, very good question. Here's a book called Purpose and Desire.
Ooh,
That is an answer to a question that scientists have been asking for a long, long time. Does the universe have a purpose? Does the universe have a desire? What do you think?
I think it is here to find that question.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. The universe is maybe a question itself. What is it trying to do? We have on this world more than 1 million kinds of life. We have 10,000 birds, different kinds of birds, from hummingbirds to ostriches to penguins to what? To vultures to crows and starlings and swifts and albatrosses and all sorts of birds that come in different forms and shapes and colors and take up different ways of making a living. Hmm? And that is just one form of life. And then we have things like mammals, which I can't remember exactly how many different kinds of mammals. I think there is something like 4,000 different kinds of mammals. So mammals can exist as human beings or whales in the ocean. Imagine a mammal like a blue whale, the largest creature ever. A blue whale can be more than 100 feet long, and I don't know how much it weighs. A lot. And it is like us. It has um, warm blood. It has even a little hair. It has even it gives has milk. Gives milk to its young. It, it bears its young live like we do. And yet, most people would see it as some sort of fish. And indeed, we didn't know it was a mammal for a long time. And people thought a whale was a fish. But it turns out it's more like us. So life has a flexibility. Hmm? A flexibility. It can become a whale or a dolphin. It can become a chimpanzee, a, a cow, a horse, a sheep, a goat, a chicken. Life has this ability to become something new, different. A whale was once a land animal, we are told today. There was an animal that lived near the shore, like a hippopotamus. Eventually, that animal went into the ocean and became a whale. How amazing is that? The first animals to come on land that you could see were animals related to fish. Why should a fish want to come on the land?
Right.
You know?
On the Bible because you asking something.
What's that?
Right.
Someone want to be cooked.
I didn't hear what that person said.
We didn't either.
I said someone want to be cooked.
They want to be
Yeah, they want to be cool.
cool.
Yeah, they come on, the fish came out onto the land. It wanted to breathe air. And nature, or God, or whatever you want to call it, gave that fish a lung, gave that fish the ability to breathe air. That lung before was called a swim bladder. It was a kind of bag that helped the fish keep its level in the ocean when it swam around. But somehow that bag turned into a lung. How did that ever happen? We don't know.
And we came out of the water.
Yes. Yes. So the fish came out of the water and started to walk around on the land on its flippers or fins. And those fins were not the same as most fish. They had turned into like a little leg, or at least an elbow. The fish had now had a different kind of bone structure that enabled it to walk around on the land. But it did go back to the water eventually. But it would come out again and walk around on the land. And then some of those fish developed legs, and they lost their ability to live in the water. And so they became lizards and crawled around on the earth. And then those lizards became something like a mammal. And the mammals became something like a dinosaur. And then eventually they became dinosaurs. And out of the dinosaurs came birds. Amazing, right? The birds that we have around us today came from dinosaurs. And we've talked about this, right? You recall we talked about this a few weeks ago, that the birds are really dinosaurs. Strange as that may sound. They are direct descendants of dinosaurs. The birds we have today are more like dinosaurs than any other animal. Any questions or comments?
You know that for sure?
Oh, yes. It's very, very well documented. See, birds and dinosaurs had a lot of similarities. Dinosaurs were the first to develop feathers. And in the beginning, the dinosaurs were covered, some of them were covered with these fine feathers like down, and we think that it enabled them to live in cold places. And eventually, those feathers started to get longer and become like regular feathers on birds. So now they were covered in. Somewhere I have a book that is all about bird dinosaurs. I don't want to get up and try to find it. but it has about 100 different pictures of dinosaurs that were bird-like. They learned to fly. They still had claws on their wings and teeth in their bills or beaks, and but they were basically dinosaurs with wings. And then eventually they lost their teeth and they lost their claws on their wings, and they became the modern bird. And this is well accepted today. 10 years ago it wasn't so accepted. So this is a very new thing. But the most of the science community accepts the fact that birds and dinosaurs are pretty much the same thing. So next time you're having a chicken for lunch, you're eating a dinosaur.
Cool.
Maybe they tasted good too. Who knows?
You never know.
You never know. Tastes like chicken, right?
Right.
It tastes like chicken. So the world is full of strangeness, and the fact that life exists is one of the strangest things of all. Any life, whether you're a bacteria or a blue whale, or a tree or a camel, it's unfathomable how life began. We don't know how life began, and it's unfathomable how it maintains itself, why it doesn't just go haywire and degrade over time. I mean, most of what we experience is based on hard rock processes that enable life to continue without disruption. Every life starts off as one cell, and that cell has the information in it to create an entire body. That's unbelievable, right? I mean, that's so amazing, right? One cell, we all start off as one cell, and then those cells start to double, and they keep doubling till they reach about 30 trillion cells. Trillion, not billion, not million, trillion.
Why did this happen?
Pardon me?
Why did this happen?
Why did this happen? That's a wonderful, wonderful question. Anybody have an answer out there? Why did this happen? Well, ultimately, I don't think we have an answer, but we can go back and say that life is possible because we have a structure that underlies the universe. And that structure is what? What do you think that structure is?
Brain?
Hmm?
Brain?
Brain? You know, that's an interesting answer. The Buddha said, everything is mind. Everything that we see is mind. And that's very interesting. And some scientists believe that as well. But the structure has an intelligence within it. The structure is atoms and molecules, which make up everything. But when you say mind, mind is an important part of this universe, an important part of life. not just thinking mind, but the kind of mind in ourselves, the kind of mind that is operating in ourselves to make things right. For example, if you have a protein or a section of information that has been wrongly copied, something will come along and notice that and change it. How is that possible? Which brings us to the question of what is the universe? Is it something other than we think it is? Is it mind? I didn't want to go that far, or I was going to maybe wait to the end to go to that far, but the world is made of atoms, but we don't really know what atoms are. Atoms are mysterious little entities, and we think of them as, like little particles. We call them particles that make up the atoms, the protons, the neutrons, electrons. We have wonderful names for them: the quarks, the muons, the pions, millions of different, not millions, but lots of different structures that make up atoms. Atoms are the conveyors of light. Light comes to us from atoms. It's a great mystery. In ancient India, I have a wonderful book here that talks about how the idea of atoms originated in India and Greece about the same time, about 2,500 years ago. People both in India and Greece started to think about the world as made up of tiny particles that no one could see. They were so small that it was impossible to imagine even what they looked like, but people thought that there was something like that as the foundation of all things. The Greek Democritus said that if you cut something up again and again and again, finally you would get to something so tiny that you couldn't cut it anymore. And that he called an atom, or uncuttable. And this idea, who knows where he got this idea from? This idea has been lingering around in the mind of human beings for thousands of years, and it was not proven until about 100 years ago. At that time, Einstein wrote a paper on the movement of atoms in a glass of water, how he could observe in a glass of water that was still dust particles that were moving around, and he said they were being pushed around by the activity of atoms. And that was really one of the first papers that had a proof of atoms that was acceptable to the science community. And then we've done many, many tests since then. We've developed various ways of examining atoms, huge machines that smash atoms together. We have one in France today that develops tremendous energies to send protons, which are the particles in the center of the atom. It sends protons around a track where they collide. And when they collide, they spew out all these different particles, and you can take pictures of that. And you can examine the tracks of these particles, and you can tell something about what they do and how they fit into the scheme of things. And so we have these elaborate ways today of discerning that atoms are indeed real. Any questions or comments? So you and I are made of atoms, mostly hydrogen atoms, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, phosphorus. These are the most common atoms in the universe, and they also happen to be the stuff of life. Amazing, right?
Are we as evolved as we're going to be?
Probably not. I hope not. I hope we are continuing our evolution. We have the power today to change the direction of life. What does that mean? We can tinker with the information in the cells and create something new. And so it may be that life reaches a certain point in its development where it can actually change itself and become something unexpected, perhaps. Super intelligent, maybe, or super strong, or who knows what. Maybe if we talk to other societies that are out there in space, maybe when we contact other worlds, they would tell us more about evolution and what the possibilities are. I think, and this is a personal feeling, is that we are close to contacting other civilizations out there in space. This is going to be a huge change in the way we think about the universe and life and ourselves. It's going to be one of those basic changes like we had a couple of 100 years ago when we suddenly realized that the earth moved. That brought about a lot of changes in people's attitudes about the universe. It brought about the ability to think about things in new ways, in scientific ways, and even politically it changed the idea, for example, that certain people didn't have the right to govern because they claimed it to be given to them by God. We had now a different opinion that the universe worked in a different way. It was mind-boggling. It was one of the biggest shifts in the way we thought about things. And now we're on the cusp, I think. I like that word, cusp. I don't use it too often. We're on the cusp, the edge of meeting with other civilizations out there in space. This may sound strange to you, but I think from what I read, I think it's imminent. I think we've already been contacted. But the government is keeping it quiet. But that's another story. I didn't want to get into that today.
Get into it.
Pardon me?
Get into it.
Get into it? Well, we have the idea that we have been contacted, that we have been visited, and we have the wreckage of flying saucers and things like that hidden away in secret places in the United States. The wreckage of flying saucers. Not just, and you probably have heard of Roswell, New Mexico. What was that about? It was 1947, and the Army put out a newspaper article that said that the Army had captured a flying disc, something that was not from this earth, that had crashed in the desert around Roswell, New Mexico, and that they had sent it to Texas, I think it was, to at first to be examined. And then the next day, the story was changed. They said it was just a weather balloon. And 30 years later, the head intelligence officer at the Air Force Base there, the Army Air Force Base, said that it wasn't a weather balloon. He was speaking off the record. He had retired. He now could talk about certain things. And he said that it wasn't a weather balloon, it was from somewhere else. And that we had had it, and we had aliens, little beings that we had, that were on that craft, that disc. Most of them had died, he said, in the crash. But there was one that was still alive. And this was a being from another world. I think it was in 1887 or 97 that it was reported that something had crashed in Texas. Something had crashed into a windmill, a weather mill, a weather vane in Texas, and it was a little being which they said came from another world. The townspeople, I believe it was Aurora, Texas, and they said that the townspeople said that they had found this little being who had died in the crash, and they buried him. They gave him him or her a Christian funeral, but they definitely said this being was from somewhere else. So we have a bunch of, there are more stories like this, that these craft which have come from another world have crashed on the earth. And we recovered them, and we know the government knows all about this, but is keeping it secret. We recently had some incidents where Navy jet pilots. And this was in 2004 and again in 2015, I think, or so, where Navy jet pilots had encountered these tic-tac shaped objects that were flying around the aircraft carrier, and these objects could outperform the best military jets we had, and could appear and disappear in an instant. They moved in ways that the jet planes could not conceivably move, and they were thought of by at least one of these jet pilots to be from another world outside of the Earth. And this just came out and was written about in the New York Times. And there is a government program now to examine these interactions between Navy pilots and these things from who knows where. And we're spending a lot of money to look at what's going on. And there's going to be a report coming out this summer on what these things might be. And whether they'll tell us everything, I don't know. I doubt it. The word is that human beings aren't ready for this.
When will we be ready?
That's a great question. When will we be ready? That's a great question. We don't know. I'm going to have a sip of tea before it gets completely cold. Any questions? Life is a strange and wonderful thing, often full of unpredictability, right? We all have our stories and how things changed and things developed in ways we didn't expect, sometimes good, sometimes not so good. But life has a kind of flow. Each one of us has a life with its own flow, its own direction, its own mystery. I often think of how we meet certain people as a great mystery. How certain people come into our lives. Is there something behind that? Is there something at work that we cannot perceive that makes two people come together? It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. Questions, comments? So we get back to what is the universe? Why is the universe, as you said, right? Why is the universe? How did something like this ever come about? You know, here I have a glass of water. The water is made of two essential atoms, two basic building blocks of the universe, hydrogen and oxygen. Now, we have 92 different atoms that are naturally occurring. Human beings have made more atoms than we have in nature. Well, that's another story. But those atoms don't usually last too long. The natural ones are stable and last a long time. For example, the hydrogen in this glass is nearly 14 billion years old. That's a long time. I don't know when the oxygen came about, but interestingly, these two atoms have the ability to combine and form water, without which life would not be possible. What if they didn't form water? What if an atom of hydrogen, oxygen, and carbon didn't form sugar? It's quite mind-boggling to think that we depend upon the capabilities of atoms to be here. All of our cells are made of... Thank you! That was my mailman delivering a package. My mailman is a wonder. He always tells me when something has arrived. Anyway, so my mailman is made of about 60% water, and so are we. And all life is dependent upon water. Most of the molecules in our body are water. Why should hydrogen and oxygen make water? Why should they have that ability? Why don't they just stay hydrogen and oxygen? Why should chlorine and sodium, which is a metal, and chlorine is a kind of poisonous gas, when you put them together, they make harmless table salt. Why should that be? Without salt, we couldn't think. We couldn't move. The salt enables our electrical connection to flow through our body. That's why one of the reasons we need salt is so that we can maintain electrical conductivity in our body. So you need sodium and you need chlorine, and these atoms were made in the stars. The oxygen was made in the stars. Hydrogen was present at the Big Bang, at the initial unfolding of the universe. But after that, you couldn't make life out of what came out of the early universe. There was only hydrogen, helium, maybe a little lithium, and something called beryllium. That's it. So you can't make life out of that. But you can make stars out of that. And that's interesting, right? You can make stars out of hydrogen. And those stars, when they burn, they make heavier and heavier atoms. They combine the atoms. When they extract the energy, they combine those atoms and make heavier atoms. So you can have atoms like carbon and nitrogen and oxygen and phosphorus and sulfur, the things that just happen to make life. So the question might be, was that preordained? Did something or someone tinker with that tinker with the structure of the universe so that it evolves and creates the possibility of life and consciousness. That each of us are here at all is a mysterious and wondrous thing. That anything on this earth is alive is a wondrous thing. Is life, we have a question, is life inherent in the universe? Is life built into the structure of the universe? What do you think? Think about this for 30 seconds. I got to go see what the mailman delivered before somebody takes it. I'll be right back.
Ole,
Huh?
ole.
Ole.
He's got the answer in the mail.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have been.
Thank you. Oh. Hmm. It's a big box of automobile parts I ordered.
Ole.
Okay. All right. So, what do you think? Is life part of the universe or is it just an accident?
There's no accidents.
It's part of the universe.
Part of the universe, you say in the back, and you say it's no accident.
No accident. No.
I would tend to agree with you. Now, there are scientists that say, oh, this is just one universe, and there may be millions of universes where things don't work, and this happens to be a place where they work. Well, perhaps that's a very complicated answer.
How can they even say that?
And that's a great question because there's no evidence.
Right.
There's no evidence, it's mere speculation. And so there's nothing really scientific to back it up, and which makes it not science really. Because science has evidence, science has data, has something that you can test, not just a possibility on a piece of paper. So when we look at the universe and we look at how life developed and evolved and is so dependent on the structure of things, it would be hard to say that life is not part and parcel of the universe. Hmm? Built into the universe, and that it would evolve wherever conditions allow it to. So that we have the possibility of life not just here on Earth, but on many, many different places out there which are very far away, and maybe we haven't had adequate time to contact those places. Or maybe we're not ready, as some people say.
Is it all still being created?
Pardon me?
Is it all still being created?
Well, That's a very good question. Um, the universe is not creating new atoms, but the universe creates new stars and planets all the time from existing atoms. This is as far as we know. And the universe also might be part of a cycle of universes that come and go. That this might not be the first universe. I mean, when you think about it, how it seems like the universe was pretty well designed in the beginning. Our universe was very well designed to continue with its evolution. You know, you had hydrogen and helium that can make stars, right? Hydrogen and helium make stars. And from those stars, you get the heavier elements that are necessary to make a planet like the Earth with water and an atmosphere and living things. And those living things have the ability to continue to change and develop over time. And how is that all of this possible? How did this just instantly come about? Maybe it took billions of years, and there were other universes before us that were less complicated than ours and didn't produce what ours produces, but they were moving in the right direction. It's hard to imagine, I think, that our universe could have just come about out of nothingness, out of the simplicity of space, and produced all that it is producing. And so it is likely, I feel, that other universes existed before us and that they came and went, and somehow there's a cycle. And the Hindus believe this. The Hindus believe that the universe, they call it the breath of God. When God breathes in, the universe disappears, and when God breathes out, the universe appears. They also say that God and the universe are one and the same. That's an interesting thought. God and the universe are one and the same, so that the mind of God is within the structure of everything. And we are not just who we think we are. We are the expression of the universe, the expression of God, you could say. But this God is a mystery. This God is not like a bigger picture of a human being. This God is everywhere and everything. Some call it being. Being. Everything is being. Everything is becoming. Maybe I'll read a poem. There's a poem by Harry Martinson called The Sea Wind. The sea wind sways on over the endless oceans, spreads its wings night and day, rises and sinks again over the desolate swaying floor of the immortal ocean. Now it is nearly morning, or it is nearly evening, and the ocean wind feels in its face the land wind. Clock boys toll morning and evening psalms. The smoke of a coal boat or the smoke of a tar-burning Phoenician ship faces away at the horizons. The lonely jellyfish, who has no history, rocks around with blue burning feet. It is nearly evening now, or morning. Here's a poem by Louise Gluck. It's called All Hallows. Even now this landscape is assembling. The hills darken, the oxen sleep in their blue yoke, the fields having picked clean, the sheaves bound evenly and piled at the roadside among cinquefoil as the toothed moon rises. This is the barrenness of harvest, and the wife leaning out of the window with her hand extended as in payment, and the seeds distinct, gold calling, come here, little one, and the soul creeps out of the tree. They say if we're quiet, we can feel certain energies in the universe. I have a story here about Jane Goodall. You know, Jane Goodall, American who traveled to Africa, where she met Louis Leakey, one of the great paleontologists who made some really big discoveries in Africa. And she met him there, and she was asked to be part of his team, even though she didn't have a college degree. And this is another story about destiny. And she went on to become one of the experts in the field of chimpanzees and their nature and how they relate to us and so on. And she spent much time in the jungle, in the forests. And she said she could feel a presence there, something unspeakable, something unknowable, but something she felt was very real. And so we have the ability as human beings to come in contact with something bigger than ourselves. that perhaps is the mother of all things, or the father of all things, or the mother and father of all things. We are more than we think we are. We have come from the cosmos. We are the cosmos. Each of us. Each of us a universal being. I want to thank you all for your good listening today and questions, and it's a great pleasure to be with you. I really, really mean that. Take care and be well. Hopefully we'll see each other again next week.
Absolutely.
You too.
Thank you. Be well.
You too. Wow. Lord have mercy.
Huh?
Lord have mercy.
Lord have mercy, really. Господи подили, they say in Russian. Lord have mercy. God have mercy. Take care and be well, everybody.
Thank
You
you.
do the same.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody.